pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Good morning on this beautiful May Day. Dr. Kane, members of our Board of Trustees, our Mayor Pro Tem Deaver, District Attorney Reyna, Advisory Board members, staff, students, on behalf of Mrs. Lori Palladino, Ezra Martinez, and Jaime Villarreal, our Academy of Law and Criminal Justice teachers, it is our welcome to help and our pleasure to have you at University High School this day. Your Honor, Justice Boyd, a special welcome to you for coming all the way from Austin to share your wisdom with us on this National Law Day. Your presence this day to celebrate with us not only this important monumentous day where we celebrate law and the justice in our country, but we are having the pleasure of dedicating our courtroom to our esteemed leader, Dr. Bill Shepard. As he likes to say to many who have known him, that through the years, many would think that he would be in court. But deep down inside, I'm sure that they knew that he would be honored for his leadership. So as we continue with our celebration this day, we want you to know, Dr. Shepard, what an honor it has been to work with you these past 3 years. And the Pillars of Justice at University High School will always bear your name as a reminder of the good that you brought to each and every student here. It's my pleasure to introduce to you at this time Tiara Talton, one of our seniors in our Academy of Law and Criminal Justice program.
Justice Boyd is a graduate of Abilene Christian University and earned his law degree summa cum laude from Pepperdine University, where he graduated second in his law school class. While at Pepperdine, he served as editor-in-chief of the Pepperdine Law Review, was the winner of the school's Fall Individual Advocacy Tournament, received numerous American Jurisprudence Awards, the American Board of Trial Advocates Awards, and the United States Supreme Court Historical Society Writing Award. After obtaining his law degree, Justice Boyd completed a 1-year judicial clerkship for the Honorable Thomas M. Reevely, Judge of the United States Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. During this time, he drafted several opinions that were published under Judge Reevely's authorship. Justice Boyd then joined the Austin office at Thompson & Knight as a first-year associate in 1992. Over the next 8 years, his practice focused primarily on civil litigation, defending against products liability, professional liability, personal injury, and business tort claims. During this time, he tried several cases to jury verdicts, argued several appeals, and resolved numerous cases through summary judgments and settlements. Justice Boyd was elected as partner at Thompson & Knight upon his first year of eligibility in 1998. In 2000, Justice Boyd joined then Texas Attorney General Cornyn as Deputy Attorney for the General Litigation and continuing with Attorney General Greg Abbott. Justice Boyd was named a Texas super lawyer for government practice in 2004 and then in 2006 through 2010. He has been a Supreme Court Advisory Committee member since 2003. In January 2011, Justice Boyd joined the governor's office as general counsel, and then in September 2011, he was the governor's chief of staff. Justice Boyd joined the Texas Supreme Court on December 3, 2012, when Governor Perry appointed him to this position. Justice Boyd has been admitted to practice before all Texas state courts, as well as the United States Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, and the United States District Court of the Western, Eastern, Southern, and Northern Districts of Texas. Justice Boyd fully understands that the role of judiciary is to interpret the law and not to create it. He is committed to faithfully upholding the laws of our state and the Constitution. With unyielding respect for our laws, Justice Boyd pledged to serve Texas with dignity, humility, and a servant's heart. As quoted by Governor Perry, Justice Boyd is committed to preserving the rule of the law, and he strives every day to live a life of fairness, integrity, and compassion. Please welcome to University and to Waco, Justice Jeffrey S. Boyd.
I couldn't have done that better myself. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be here, and I want to thank you for inviting me. It was mentioned he drove all the way up from Austin, and in my view, this is just a short little trip to come up to Waco. I'm happy to do it. I started about a year and a half ago in all my travels around the state, stopping at local county courthouses and getting a picture in front of each one. And I now have my picture in front of 207 out of the 254 county courthouses. So trust me, Waco's right in my neighborhood. The only thing missing out of my biography, besides my family, of course, who I would love for you to meet someday, is that when I graduated from Abilene Christian, I spent 5 years as a youth and family minister in Austin before I went to law school. I was a Bible major from ACU. And the only reason I bring that up is because I'm sitting here looking at Dr. Moore and his wife and Miss Brewer over here, who were members of the church that I was the youth pastor at back in the 1980s. And Judy's son was in our youth group, and Kevin and Candace were very active young adult sponsors of our youth ministry there. And so that was an unexpected surprise to get to come in and see them today. So thank you. This is a great day and a great celebration, and what a great way to celebrate Law Day, to open and sort of christen and cut the ribbon on a courtroom in a high school. I wish more and more students could be here today to celebrate this with us, but they're the ones that are going to get to spend a lot of time in this room in the years ahead. I want somewhere in this room for 3 words to be put on the wall here. Those words are brokenness, hope, and a challenge, because that's what courtrooms represent. All these courthouses all around the country, all around the state that I've had the opportunity to go visit, every time I walk into a courtroom, I want you to think like I think about brokenness first, because you don't go into a courtroom for fun stuff. You go in a courtroom because you've been charged with a crime, either because you did the crime or because you've been falsely accused. But either way, it's not a fun time to be there. Or because you've been hurt, or because somebody's broken a contract or you've broken a contract. Or occasionally, you'll see a wedding or an adoption in a courtroom, and those are the fun times to go into a courtroom. But people don't go into courtrooms usually except for brokenness. There's a story. How many of you have heard the name of Judge Nicholas Battle? I'm going to tell you his story very briefly today. Judge Battle sat as a judge in a courtroom right here in this city, Waco, Texas, for years back, more than 150 years ago. It was in the 1850s when he served as a judge here. And if you track your brain a little bit and think about the 1850s, you'll realize what was going on in our country in the 1850s. The truth is, we're all trying to have relationships, and every relationship has some degree of brokenness. And you may see that in your family, you may see that in your church, you may see that in this school, you may see that in this city. I know we see it today in our country. There's brokenness in this country. There was a lot of brokenness in this country in the 1850s when Judge Battle was sitting here as a judge. He was well respected, but he was also a slave owner. And he was also a Southerner who left the bench to go fight for the Confederacy in the Civil War. And he became a hero in the Civil War among the Confederate Army. But as you know, they lost that war, and he returned back to Waco. And the Emancipation Proclamation had been announced, and all the slaves were freed, including his own, which was a young man, a blacksmith named Shedrick Willis. Shedrick Willis had been his slave for years, but was now freed. Now, as you can imagine, the brokenness happening in this community and communities all around the South, having lost the war and having to come home and change their way of life to comply with the rule of law in our country. And many people didn't want to do it. A case came before Judge Battle a year or so later, he left when he came back from the war, he was reappointed to the district court here in Waco. And the case was indicative of the struggle of the now freed slaves in this community. What it was that they had no land, they had no money, most had no education, and they struggled. And some chose to sell themselves back into slavery. And that's what a man named Westbrook did. And Judge Battle, in support of the rule of law, ruled that those kinds of contracts were not permissible under our Constitution. You can't sell yourself into slavery after the Civil War. And even amongst the community here, as all around the South, saying, well, a man or a woman ought to be able to enter into a contract they want, Judge Battle said, no, we are no longer a country of slavery. So in the midst of all the brokenness that was happening here, Judge Battle upheld the rule of law. And that gets to the second word that goes on the wall, which is the word hope. Because the rule of law is what offers hope to the resolution of the brokenness in our community. Judge Battle recognized that, and he supported it by ruling in favor of freedom in the case that came before him that ended up going to the Texas Supreme Court and being affirmed in the Texas Supreme Court. That offered hope to people like his own former slave, Shedrick Willis. Mr. Willis wasn't like Mr. Westbrook, choosing to sell himself back into slavery. Instead, he got an education, and he went on to serve on the city council of the city of Waco, elected twice in the 1860s to serve as a city councilman, as an African-American freedman in this very community. The best part of the story is that Shedrick Willis also had children, and they had children, and they had children, and they had children. And his great-great-great-grandson is a man named Wallace Jefferson, who is the Chief Justice of your Supreme Court until he retired at the end of last year. The first African American to serve on the Texas Supreme Court, and the first ever to be Chief Justice of our Supreme Court, where he served for 14 years as Chief Justice. That's the rule of law in action. We look around and we see brokenness. We see hope in the rule of law. We see other people trying to resolve the conflicts in our community in ways other than through the rule of law, and it just simply doesn't work. But the rule of law does, and Chief Justice Jefferson is the beneficiary of that. That's what this courtroom represents. As students come into this room and they learn how to be a lawyer, or to be a prosecutor or a defense lawyer, or to be a judge, or to serve as witnesses or jurors, what we're doing in this courtroom through them is teaching them the importance of the rule of law as the source of hope for fixing the brokenness in our society. That gets to the last word that I would want to be associated with this room, other than shepherd.
All your three words.
And that third word is challenge. Because the brokenness happens repeatedly every day. And we're seeing it in Baltimore, we're seeing it on social issues all throughout our community, disagreements on everything from taxation to school funding to abortion to marriage to all the issues that divide us. Our hope is in the rule of law to uphold our society. But that hope comes with a challenge. You probably know the story of Benjamin Franklin, who was the oldest member of the Constitutional Convention when our country was first founded. And that was a great challenge at that time as people came together in Independence Hall in Philadelphia and in secret met for days. They wouldn't even allow reporters anywhere around there. They barred the doors with soldiers as they met to figure out how to constitute this country and our government. And there was great suspicion that what they were going to do was to create a monarchy in the same form that we had come from in England. And of course, George Washington. And so that was the expectation. And the promise they kept making was, no, we're working on a republic. We're trying to make a republic. And after it all was said and done and the final ink was signed, old Ben Franklin came out and an old woman stopped him on the street and said, so, Mr. Franklin, what have we, a republic or a monarchy? And Benjamin Franklin said, it's a republic, ma'am, if you can keep it. If you can keep it. And that's the challenge we have every day in this country, is to uphold the rule of law founded on our Constitution in order to keep this republic that offers the freedom that we now all have the opportunity to enjoy. So I'm proud to be here today to help celebrate the opening of this little courtroom that's not even a real courtroom, although, Judge, I hope you'll come hold court here, real court here sometimes, and let students come in and watch it happen. Because this represents all of the brokenness and hope and challenge that our judicial system and the rule of law supports every day in our society. So thank you again for letting me join you, Dr. Shepard, Dr. Kane, and congratulations. I told Dr. Shepard that the only bad thing about ever having something named after you when you're still alive is you can't mess up now. So I'm proud to be here to celebrate with him. Thank you again for letting me come.
Dr. Shepard is a 22-year-old retired lieutenant colonel, 22-year-old, not that young, with the United States Air Force. During his military career, he was a pilot instructor, a U.S. Air Force Academy teacher, an Air Ward College professor, and flew a T-37, T-38, and C-5 in Desert Storm. Dr. Shepard received his Bachelor of Science from Texas A&M University, master's degree from Golden Gate University in Tarleton, and his doctorate from the University of Alabama. Prior to his principalship at University High School, Dr. Shepard was a teacher at Conley, later becoming one of its assistant principals. From there, he went on to Valley Mills as its principal and superintendent. He later became the principal at Lake Air and subsequently called University High School his home as principal. Dr. Shepard has been married to his wife, Dorothy, for 45 years. Together they have a son named Casey, who is a licensed lawyer practicing in Waco, and a daughter, Millie, who is a teacher at Mountain View. Millie and her husband, Jeff Wooten, have a son, Gabriel, and Dr. Shepard says he's 2, going on 18, actually. It comes as no surprise that Dr. Shepard has his likes and dislikes. His likes consist of kids, dogs, and cows. His dislikes are diet, rules, meetings, and cell phones.
You know this will be short because it says I am delivering words of wisdom. Dr. Moore is our Teacher of the Year and finalist for Secondary Teacher of the Year. Wow. I went to school with Rick Perry. So we have a lot in common, but Justice Boyd, Rick Perry and I have one major thing in common, and we surround us with people like you that is a lot smarter than we are. I probably would have been in court, and I would probably be sitting at the defendant's table. Okay? So I saw on my invitation, all right, because I knew we were planning this, and then I saw the William E. Shepard something, and then I immediately ran up to Ryer's room and said, what did you do? You know this is, so, I'm honored. This is great. Truthfully, I've worked at several different campuses, and I have planted an oak tree myself with my own money, and about 3 inches below the ground is a white limestone rock that I've scratched out my name and the date. And I have a little map that one of these days, and the reason I put it underneath the ground, that way it won't get thrown away or so I'll get thrown at the tree. So one of these days, if anybody ever cares, I've got a little map of where the rock is, and they can dig up Bill Shepard and the date. So that is my own memorial to me, a tree. So I am honored. This is wonderful. I'm glad you came, and for everybody that is here, Pepperdine. If I were in, first of all, I would never get accepted to Pepperdine Law School. But if I were there, I would last probably a semester, because if you don't know where Pepperdine is, it's a beautiful place surrounded by golf courses. I would have spent most of my time on the golf course and been disenrolled, but that is a wonderful law school. That is my son. He went to UC Davis, so he's a lawyer, and he is just, you know, the ropes of getting started as a lawyer. And it's nice that anything that happens that I need legal advice, I can get it watching television. So I am totally glad that you're here. When I went through high school, if it hadn't been for shop, welding, ag, athletics, all these things that are hands-on things, I probably wouldn't have made it. So, you know, when it came, this design was made for a courtroom, but somehow we left it out when the building was built. So I go, how can you really understand law and appreciate law if you can't have a judge and a jury and the things that go with it? So, you know, we went to work at getting it to look like a courtroom, and we're very proud of it. Because I know that kids have to experience it, see it, and touch it for it to be real. So this is a real courtroom to us, and I'm very glad that you could be here today. Are we ready to pass? Go for it.
Oh, you probably need to stay up here. Sorry.
First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today and sharing this day with us. It's really special for us, and I know y'all have busy and demanding personal and professional lives, but I'm deeply humbled to be in the presence of such distinguished people, and I do appreciate y'all being here today. They referred to the Magna Carta. Magna Carta is an enduring legacy, and I believe, as you will agree, that we need to be mindful and appreciative of what we do for our present generations, but we also need to be very mindful and appreciative of the legacy that we provide for future generations. And so by naming this courtroom, by keeping this courtroom, I hope for future generations that it will continue to be an educational tool. So with that having been said, Dr. Shepard, will you please come forward? This plaque will become a permanent fixture of this room, and I want to personally thank you for everything you've done. It's been a joy and an honor and a privilege to work with you, and I appreciate your support of the student court program, mock trial program, the design of the courtroom, and for never saying no to me.
We have a student court where they offer sanctions. We have peer mediation and mediation of kids. And she leads all of that. She is wonderful.
Well, I don't do the peer mediation. And so you may do the unveiling. And just a little gift. Anyone who has a courtroom named after them, they must have this. So this right here is your gift. If you want to open it in front of everybody, you can. Just take the little box out. And you may take this with you.
All right. So after being married to my wife for all those years, I can say this is final and go. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. Thank you.
We will now have our closing remarks by our superintendent, Dr. Bonnie Kane.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here and taking your time out, not only to honor Law Day, but to recognize what University High School is trying to do with getting students to understand the law and be a part of the law, and also to honor Dr. Shepard. As you know, there is no substitute for leadership. If you've got a family, if you're in a workplace, in a church, in a courtroom, leadership stands out. And we are very fortunate in Waco ISD in that Dr. Shepard is that kind of leader. All of us hope that when we leave our workplace, we've left a legacy, and a lot of people like to name their own legacy. You know, my legacy is going to be this, and my legacy is going to be that, and it may or may not be their legacy, because what your real legacy is what lasts. And when you look at Mountain View, once that Dr. Shepard left Mountain View, things did not change, things grew. He went to Lake Air. We needed him at Lake Air to change some things. And he made it a better school. And when he left, it got even better because of the things that he put in place. Some people can be a change agent, and once you leave, things return to the way they were. And that meant that you were there, and then through the sheer force of your personality, you made a difference while you were there and left. Your real legacy is, did what happened grow into something else? And that's what happened at Lake Air. So of course, whenever we needed a principal at University High School, we asked Dr. Shepard to come here. And the same thing happened. People started doing things better themselves because of his leadership. It wasn't because they were made to do it. It wasn't because they were afraid not to do it. It was because Dr. Shepard inspires that kind of behavior in people. And when he leaves University High School, it will be the same thing. It will be a law classroom named after him. It will be people still saying the Shepard-isms that are a part of this campus now. It will be them remembering a time whenever they made a turn in their journey and they are still in that turn and going upwards. So when we had a campus that we needed another magician, of course, it was Dr. Shepard that we thought of. And he very graciously, and Waco ISD will always be grateful to him for changing his retirement plans and going to Chavez to help us make Chavez the kind of campus that he has made University High, and that he has made Lake Air, and that he has made made in Mountain View. So we have that plan. We know it's going to work. We know because of him it will be the kind of campus that he has left. Dr. Shepard is the kind of administrator that older administrators wish they had been and younger administrators hope to be. Thank you very much for coming.